Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Miami Hurricane fans coming out of ACC Media Days as Mario Cristoabl confirming Mark Fletcher, Akeem Mesidor, and a laundry list of other Miami Hurricanes going to be full go for fall camp and expected to be 100% for that week one matchup against the Florida Gators. I think this is massive for a couple of different reasons. One, every single player that we are going to talk about in this injury update, they're really good football players, but I think more importantly, you look at this Miami Hurricanes program, you're not opening up against Miami of Ohio. You're going on the road to the Swamp, playing the Florida Gators, and to have these key contributors expected to be 100% for that week one matchup, it's massive. I mean, there are a lot of other Power Four programs that are dealing with some injuries, and they kind of have a couple of weeks into that college football season to get all of their guys back because they kind of had cakewalks for the first couple of games. Not the Miami Hurricanes. You wanted your team 100% heading into that matchup. That's exactly what we're going to see from the Miami Hurricanes. Want to go over a couple of players that we finally got some injury updates on, talk about what they mean to this Miami program. Before we do, as always, massive shout out to the Miami Hurricane fans. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support y'all have shown the fellas, whether we're talking recruiting, doing film deep dives, previewing 2024. You guys continue to show a ton of love. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. And without further ado, let's get into, I think, the biggest news that we got, and that was Mark Fletcher. And you look at Mark Fletcher, I think one of the most underrated running backs in the entire country heading into 2024. A lot of the national media, when it comes to Miami, they want to talk about Damian Martinez, who's a phenomenal running back in and of itself. We've talked extensively about Damian Martinez. You look at Mark Fletcher as a true freshman, he had 3 games where he had over 15 carries. 2 of those games went for over 100 yards, including NC State and Louisville, 2 very good defenses, specifically in the front 7. You start diving into a little bit more of the numbers. I mean, Mark Fletcher as a true freshman goes for over 500 yards, averages 5 yards per carry, 33 missed tackles forced for Mark Fletcher, and averaged 3.8 yards after contact per carry. That is the same number as Damian Martinez. Now, I kind of got a little tripped up on those numbers to kind of put that in perspective. You're getting a freshman running back that had some of the better advanced numbers that we saw in all of the ACC at the running back position. I think what excites Miami fans the most is kind of the idea where you have a very good offensive line heading into 2024. You have 2 running backs that are 2 of the most physically imposing running backs that you see across the country. Mark Fletcher, Damian Martinez. We have said this a bunch. What does it look like when Mario Cristoabl forces these defenses to tackle guys like Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez 40 to 50 times a game? You talk about going on the road and beating the Florida Gators. What's the best way to get that crowd out of that game really quick? Running the football. And I think they're going to be able to do that with Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez. That's, again, one of the better running back duos that you see in the country, running behind an offensive line that is going to be moving bodies off the line of scrimmage. And we said this, I'll say it again, Cam Ward is exceptional working off play action. He didn't get a ton of opportunities to work play action against during his time at Washington State because the run game was so dreadful. With the run game that we expect to be one of the better rushing attacks in the country, giving Cam Ward a little bit more opportunity to operate in play action, I think that's a massive storyline for this Miami Hurricanes program. Next guy I want to talk about, and a guy that the Miami Hurricane fans who've been rocking with the fellas for a while know, Akeem Mesidor is my guy heading into 2024. Another guy that is just not getting enough love. We just did a film deep dive on Akeem Mesidor the other day. He was the best defensive lineman on this Miami Hurricanes team in 2022. Obviously missed most of that season in 2023 with an injury. He's also full go heading into 2024. This is not only an all-conference caliber player for the Miami Hurricanes. What excites me about Akeem Mesidor, we talked about it yesterday, a guy that you can play at the edge spot. You can play at the 3 technique. He's very good against the run. You start looking at those pass rush situations where if Miami can win on first and second down, stopping the run, get those teams into second and third and longs, and you start kind of dialing up the pass rush, you kick Akeem Mesidor to the inside. You have guys like Tyler Barron, and Ruben Bain on the outside, Akeem Mesidor, Simeon Barrow Jr. on the inside. That is a front four that is going to be so difficult for opposing offensive linemen to deal with. And I think that allows Miami to keep their two safeties high. I mean, you look at a lot of other defenses that struggle to get after the passer with their front four. They have to send pressure. They got to send safeties on blitzes. You look at Miami, our biggest question mark is this secondary going to be good enough? When you have a pass rush that's going to be as good as Miami's is, it takes a lot of pressure off a secondary. That might be a unit that we have some question marks about. So Mark Fletcher, Akeem Mesidor are two guys that just are flying under the radar for this Miami Hurricanes program. Two guys that are legitimate all-conference caliber players. They're going to be full goes for that week one matchup against the Florida Gators. The last other couple names I want to talk about, the Maui Noah brothers, again, guys that were held out from fall camp or spring camp, that is. We kind of knew they'd be ready. They're going to be full goes for fall camp. The last name I want to talk about, and another one of those kind of sleeper players, at least in my mind, is Josh Horton. Now, is Josh Horton going to start on the inside of the defensive line for the Miami Hurricanes? No, probably not. But you have what you want, and what you look at with those elite defenses that we've seen the last couple of years is how deep they are along the defensive line, specifically on the inside where you're dealing with guys that are 300 plus pounds. You want to make sure you're rotating them, keeping them fresh. But when you are rotating them, does the level of play not drop off significantly? We've seen a lot of programs have, some really good players on the inside, but when those players had to go off the field, the defensive line really struggled. You look at a guy like Josh Horton, maybe in the 2 deep, maybe in the 3 deep. He's going to be a guy that probably plays 10 to 15 snaps a game for Miami. Those snaps are going to be important. And when you have a guy like Josh Horton, who's not really going to drop off that much in terms of the depth on the inside of the defensive line, I think that's another massive storyline as well. I think to kind of sum this up, if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan, you have to be fired up in terms of this team being healthy heading into the 2024 season. We've said it time and time again. On paper, this is one of the best teams, not only in the ACC, but in the country. They're healthy going into the week one matchup against the Florida Gators. Now, the last thing I want to throw in there, and some unfortunate news, and we'll touch on it late, Zion Nelson medically retiring from the game of football. This was a guy that we've been talking about in the comments section for really the last 24 months. We all thought he had kind of all-American, all-conference potential, was a future NFL guy. Unfortunately, that's what happens in the game of football sometimes. Gets banged up. Wishing Zion Nelson nothing but the best in his future endeavors outside of the sport of football. But on average, some really good news for the Miami Hurricanes from an injury standpoint heading into 2024. And again, this is big because you got a week one matchup that is one of the biggest games of the season. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.